hometown.
KHTS Breaking News.
This is KHTS News Director Michael Brown, continuing our series this week of interviewing all of the candidates for the 2020 City Council race. This is the only source to hear from all 9 candidates, so make sure you're staying tuned over here at KHTS Radio. Joining me today is our one interview for the day. We got TimBen Boydston. Sir, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Michael, and how about yourself?
Oh, I'm hanging in there, happy to be inside and out of the smoke.
Yeah, it's still a little smoky, not as bad as it's been, but yeah, enough.
Yes, sir. So let's get right into it. The question that we always want to ask all of our candidates is, why are you running for City Council?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm running for City Council because I was on the City Council for about 6 years, so I'm partly responsible for where the city is today, which I'm very proud of, and I think that we have a great city it's safe and it's clean and it's a great place to raise a family, and that is what I want to keep it that way. So that's why I'm running for City Council, because, well, during this time there's a lot of uncertainty. It's an unsettled time for different reasons, and I want to make sure that public safety is paramount to me, and I want to make sure that when people come here, and a lot of people want to come here or visit here, that it remains a safe place to live. And so that's the main reason I want to run for City Council, is because I want to continue the work that I was doing and work with the City Council members to make sure that the city stays solid and beautiful.
Now, you say things are uncertain right now. Obviously, one of the big components of that is the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. I'm sure you're sick of hearing about it here during the campaign trail, but I got to ask you, how have you viewed the city's response to the COVID pandemic, and what would you do differently on the council?
Well, I have been, and I'm not tired of it, first of all. It is my life now, because our business, where I'm the executive director at the Canyon Theater Guild for over 20 years now, has been closed for 6 months. So that creates a challenge, but it also creates the opportunity for me as a councilman to know exactly the challenges that are faced by those people better than anyone. As far as the council's response to it, they've done a pretty good job, actually. The council has their hands tied, as you know, because we do not have our own health department. So the county health department, and we have a lot of great people that are working down at the county, and the problem is the county is so big, and there are so many different areas that without being pulled out as a separate area, then you're not able to have your own individual reopening schedule and things like that. So I think if I were on the council, I would have been yelling louder about that, and really contacting people all up and down the political ladder with regard to finding out how we can get our businesses back open.
So then you would support something along the lines of a Santa Clarita specific health department that the mayor has proposed over the past couple of weeks?
Yeah, I said that we're going to actually want to take a look at the cost of that and see if there's an alternative where we might be able to have a health officer that's in charge of ours as a kind of a hybrid, because as you know, it's very expensive. And so I would have to look at the actual numbers before we did that. But we have to do something to create an independence, because we're not a little town anymore. We're growing into a bigger and bigger city all the time, and that creates its own set of problems. So the other thing that I probably would have done on the council is really gotten out there more and talked about the personal responsibility issue, because I think that's lacking in some communication, to let people know they are the ones that are responsible. Okay, take that responsibility seriously and take charge of yourself. If you do that, and everyone does that, then you're obviously going to be much better off, because it stops the spread.
So when you say responsible and making sure people are responsible, are you referring to things like mask wearing or just general safety practices? Can you kind of clarify that for me?
Yeah, I am talking about both, okay? But I'm talking about mask wearing with a rational set of expectations, okay? Obviously, if you're walking outside and you're not going to be near anybody, there's no reason for you to have your mask on. But have your mask in your pocket so that if you get to some place where there are a lot of people, you put it on. Now, as you know, or probably know, because they've done a lot of information on the COVID travels in the air when someone is infected, and if you sneeze or do something like that, it expels the COVID in great amounts. And so a concentration of the COVID is necessary for your body to get it, and depending on your immune system, that depends on whether you're going to get it or not. And it's all been very fascinating to me because one of my degrees is in medical technology. I have an Associate's of Science. So I come from a place of having some knowledge about this type of a bug and how it spread and what to do to stop it. On the flip side, you have to understand that you can be cautious about things, but you don't need to get crazy about it because, as you know, it's mostly the underlying conditions, and the average age of death is 80, so you really have to understand that we have to be measured in what we're doing, because that's where the great danger lies. It is true that 6% of the COVID deaths do not seem to have underlying conditions, but in a perspective of the big picture, that's about 11,000 people so far. Okay, that's and in the period we are in right now. And the death rate as a percentage is continuing to drop and will continue to drop because more young people are getting the virus. It doesn't affect nearly as bad. They don't go to the hospital usually. Usually, if they have no underlying conditions, usually they get it, they're over it. And so what happens then is the metrics change on the numbers. So you have a smaller and smaller percentage of the total cases that become fatalities. And of course, science has done a really good job about finding ways to cut that down as well when a person does get it and is sick. So we don't stop jumping in the car because 40,000 people a year die from automobile accidents, right? So yes, you need to take personal responsibility, you need to be cautious, but we have to understand that, you know, there is a risk of dying when you get up in the morning. In fact, every year, a lot of people don't know how many people. I said, well, how many people? I've asked this several people, and I haven't got this person unless they looked it up recently. I had to look it up to get a number, but the number of people that die in America is 2,600,000. 2,600,000 every year from all causes. So that's a very, very big number. So I'm not trying to underplay the severity at all of the COVID. But what I am trying to do is to tell people to be cautious and be aware it is something that's out there and can kill you. But on the flip side, I also want to make sure that fear doesn't paralyze us from opening up businesses and doing things where people need to work and people need to do jobs. And you got to understand, there's a lot of people out there that are doing those jobs, and I feel for those people, because people that are out there picking the crops, people that are out there at the grocery store that are selling you this stuff, the people that are stocking the shelves, all those people are at work. It's very easy sometimes for some people, unfortunately, if they got a job where they can be distant and sitting at the house at their computer and do that job and get paid for it, or if they work for the government and they send them home. There's a lot of people out there. Those are fortunate people. But I think we really need to keep in mind that not everyone's like that, and the small businesses are getting killed.
Gotcha. Now, shifting away from COVID, but maintaining the line of public health here, we've been talking to officials with the Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff's Station, as we usually do here at KHTS, and they've been telling us that the number of fatal overdoses in our valley has been increasing, especially related to the substance known as fentanyl. What do you think the city can be doing to kind of alleviate this rise in fatal overdoses?
Obviously, it is an epidemic in America, and because we're in Santa Clarita, we're certainly not immune. Obviously, you want to keep educating people, educate them on the dangers of those drugs. I think that we seriously need to look at, in Los Angeles and in Santa Clarita, there's programs around the country and around the world where they use synthetic drugs. Okay, and the synthetic drugs takes the place of a show called a real drug. Okay, and so it doesn't get you high, but what it does is it stops the craving for the drug. And there are many thousands of people that are enrolled in these programs. They have to go and get that, or they get incarcerated. Now, you have to talk about this. We have to take some serious steps, I believe, not just in Santa Clarita, but in our society, where there has to be incarceration. Incarceration has got to be done, because otherwise, people that have addictions to drugs and alcohol, and you see that rampant in the homeless population, which is another problem everywhere, including Santa Clarita, I don't believe we're going to be able to solve those issues if we don't have the ability to have incarceration as a tool for the courts and for the society, and say, hey, listen, you need to do this. You need to take this synthetic drug, or you go to jail. That has to be. It's the carrot and the stick. But right now, what we have is, unfortunately, a set of laws, and a set of laws that have been brought about by people having the ability to be freedom. When you say freedom, they have the ability to decide that they can do whatever they want, and as long as they're not a danger to themselves or others, then you can't lock them up. Well, you can see where that's taken us as a society, and I think we need to look at that very, very seriously.
Gotcha. And you would be talking specifically things about here in Santa Clarita, looking at Santa Clarita specific things that we could be doing along those lines.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's obviously the county is the primary health provider, as it were. But we're in the county, we're in our own city. And so when we talk about those things, we have to have serious discussions about that. People are just dying. Like, a lot of people are dying. It's sad.
Gotcha. So we're coming to the close here, but a couple more questions for you here. Recently, the city released a survey talking about how the traffic in the city is now the #2 concern from citizens. Obviously, because we're in the year 2020, the #1 concern is COVID. Do you think this indicates that traffic is improving in the city? Why or why not?
Well, yeah, of course it's improving because nobody's going to work because of the COVID. It was even better a few months ago when we were almost completely locked down and nothing was open. The traffic's only improving because of the COVID. People are accustomed to the news cycle, and they're accustomed to what happened to last week and the week before, but we've been in this situation for 6 months now. I'm loving the traffic. I'm property manager for our property, so I go to work every day. And so, yeah, I love it. I love the fact that the streets are moving and that, but that's going to come to a stop. Once we get back open and the economy takes off again, people can go back to work, and we're going to be in the same position we were before. We have to build roads. That's the bottom line. We have to build more roads. And I pushed for it when I was on the council. I was successful in getting, pushing one of the roads forward to the point where they do the study, but they need to work harder on it. We need to complete the major cross-valley connectors that we have across the Magic Mountain Parkway and Santa Clarita Parkway. We have to do these roads. If we don't do these roads, we're going to be in so much trouble, especially now that you know that the laws that have been passed up in Sacramento with regard to second units on properties that are state laws, they're going to override local zoning. This is going to, unless this is challenged in court and this goes forward, and for what it looks like now, we're going to have incredible amounts of density added to the city without even having a housing developer come in. And one of those bills has also make it much easier to build. Don't get me wrong, we need housing, because with the housing issue is a huge issue, and the reason that housing is so expensive and the reason that rentals are so expensive is simply supply and demand. There's too many people here in LA and in California and not enough houses. That's supply and demand. You just have to build more houses. And the solution is not rent control, okay? Rent control only helps the people that are in houses, and it only works for a period of time, and everywhere it's been tried, it slams the door on the building industry. They don't build any apartments anymore. They don't build inexpensive housing. No, it's a terrible thing, and it is the worst possible thing. So there's a lot of bad legislation that's being passed up in Sacramento right now. It's going to affect Santa Clarita.
Gotcha. And specifically in terms of traffic.
Yeah, in terms of traffic. More people mean more cars, mean more traffic. And I would love to say, people say, well, do that mass transit. I love mass transit. I take the train when I go to LA whenever I can. I love mass transit. But most people don't, because they can't get from point A to point B. And here in Santa Clarita, it's a virtual impossibility for a lot of people because we have all these houses up in the mountains. Okay, and the nearest bus stop maybe seem near to you if you're a certain age and ability, but a lot of people, they're not walking. They can't walk. Okay, so you have people that are they're not gonna ride the bus system.
Gotcha. And then Tim, I don't mean to cut you off here, but we're down in the final 30 seconds. I do want to ask you here.
Okay.
Just give me 30-second pitch. When we go to vote in November, why would a Santa Clarita resident vote for TimBen Boydston?
Because I have experience and I am going to do everything I can to do what I did the last time I was there in City Hall and keep Santa Clarita safe, increase public spending on our Sheriff's Department as needed, so that Santa Clarita is always a place you look forward to coming home. Faith, family, community, and country. Those are the stars that I steer by. I want to God bless you all, and thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Boydston, for joining us today. Everybody, thank you for joining, whether it be on Facebook Live or live on air. Make sure you join us tomorrow. We got the final 3 candidates for Santa Clarita City Council. Thanks again. Reporting with KHTS, this is Michael Brown.
KHTS, your hometown station.